Spacehive. I'd just like to do a quick test to make sure that you can all hear me and can see the presentation. You'll see in the left-hand side of your screen is a chat box. If you could use that chat box now to type in what your favourite fruit is. So just use the chat box to tell me what your favourite fruit is. This way I can just double check that you can all hear me and that you all know where to access the chat box. So if you have any questions throughout this hour's session, oh, we've got a couple of banana lovers, very good. Okay, strawberry, okay, fantastic. So it sounds like you can all hear me, so we're going to move on and get started with teaching you all how to run a successful crowdfunding campaign. Now, before we begin, I would just like to hear from you, again, using the chat box, what you hope to get out of today's workshop. So perhaps you want to learn a little bit more about crowdfunding in general, or maybe you already have a project idea up on Spacehive, and you're looking to learn how to make that campaign a success. Or maybe you want to learn a little bit about just another approach to fundraising. Whatever it is, if you could just use the chat box to let me know what it is you would like to learn today. And that way we can angle the workshop around what it is that you'd like to learn. Fantastic. So we've got one person that would like to make an existing campaign a success and achieve the fundraising target. Brilliant. Okay, we've got another person who's actually working for the council and would like to be able to help support other projects in the area of Redbridge so that they can also hit their targets. Okay, fantastic. So that gives me a good feel that we're all sort of on the same page. This is a workshop, an hours-long session where our goal is to teach you how to run a successful crowdfunding campaign. Now this is, something that's quite new. Crowdfunding is quite a new phenomenon, and many people don't know how to the first place to start, which is very normal. But we've helped hundreds of projects through the process, and we've come up with a tried and tested method that seems to work quite well. We have a 53% success rate, whereas the world average is 23%. And we'd love to share those tips and tricks with you today. So I'm just going to start by telling you very quickly the basics of crowdfunding and where it all began. So the basic concept of crowdfunding has been around for a long time. This is the Statue of Liberty in New York, the pedestal of which was actually funded through public subscription, which is sort of the old-fashioned way of crowdfunding, where you get the crowd to give you all $1 each, and through that kind of laborious process, you can make something much bigger and better than you could even imagine before starting. And fast forwarding to the 21st century, crowdfunding, and with the rise of the internet especially, we've been able to make this a much easier method. So it doesn't require a newspaper baron going around the streets of New York City asking for funds. And Spacehive especially, we've designed a model where anyone can create a project on Spacehive. You could be an individual, you could be a community group, maybe a business, and absolutely anyone can back change. So it doesn't matter who or where you are, you can always donate to a project that is important to you. And where we really stand out is we have companies and councils and organisations that have come on board to put up a large selection of funding pots. So what we've done is we've taken the traditional crowdfunding and we've combined it with grant applications in order to make it even easier for you to hit your target. So these are some of the funds that are available on our platform. Some of them are specific to geographical locations, and others are specific to themes, and others are just UK-wide in general. And when you upload your project idea onto Spacehive, if you haven't done already, you will be matched to any relevant funding pots. So, for example, this project, Belicious Honey Cafe, was matched to the Growing a Greener Britain Fund, which is for green spaces, anything sort of environmental. And it's also been matched with the Barclays Life Skills. So then all you would need to do is go in and pitch. They often ask maybe 1 or 2 questions. And that means that later on down the line in your crowdfunding campaign, they will potentially give you a pledge to your project. So that's just a little bit of a background of what we do and who we are. And I want to hear from you about your ideas. So, perhaps you are already crowdfunding for your project idea, or perhaps you've got something, it's not fully formed idea, but you have a general area that you'd like to do something in. Whatever it is, if you could just use the chat box now just to give me 1 sentence to tell me about your project. And that means that later on when we're giving tips, we can use your project ideas as examples to make this a really beneficial hour. So just use the chat box and tell me what your idea is. Brilliant. So we've got a temporary event space on Ilford High Road. So that's perfect. That sounds like a really exciting project idea. On Spacehive, you can have a temporary project idea, or it can be permanent. And we've got another project idea here. It's to regenerate an area of the estate, to upgrade dilapidated pathways and make them into communal areas. So again, that's brilliant. We love anything that's to do with renovation and kind of repurposing a place that could be better than what it is now, but perhaps isn't a priority for a local council to fix just this moment. And we've got another fantastic project idea, a mural to raise awareness for mental health. So brilliant. And murals are a great, easy way just to splash a bit of colour as well as awareness about your project idea or about your mission. And it doesn't cost very much money at all. It reminds me, one of our cheapest projects is a project called The Heron. You can look it up on our website later. And it cost £80, I believe, or £180 maybe, to paint a heron on the side of a building. So it was just money for the paint. And this was to not only kind of spruce up the local area and make it a bit more fun for people who were walking past it every morning, but also to raise awareness that they're an endangered species. And just so it kind of played multiple roles, but it was a very quick and easy project. Brilliant. Well, thank you for sharing. Any more ideas that people would like to share? If not, we're just going to move on. So now that we've heard a little bit about your idea, I would love to refine your idea and turn it into what we would call a crowdfundable idea. Now we have 3 things that we say determine the success of a Spacehive project in terms of the idea. So this is even before we start planning your crowdfunding campaign. In order for your campaign to be successful, the idea has to be thought through properly, so that it's so that you can describe it properly on your project page. So the first thing that we say is essential for a successful crowdfunding project idea is that it's accessible. And by this we mean that it has broad appeal. So if your project is only going to benefit people that are under the age or between the ages of 20 and 25 in a particular part of a particular neighbourhood, perhaps it's like a niche knitting club or something like this, then you're going to struggle to find people to pledge to your project. If you imagine you've got a playground project and a group of local mums would like to fundraise for some new baby swings, then you're not necessarily going to attract the attention of the mums that have older kids who would perhaps prefer playing something like table tennis than going on the baby swings. So as you're thinking of your idea, think of ways that you can broaden the appeal in order to broaden your chances of getting pledges from lots of different people. So perhaps you could throw a table tennis table in there, or something for the dog walkers in the park, or something for the elderly in the park, to really make that accessible. And the second thing is tangibility. So by this, we refer to your project being easily delivered, if you like. So if you are talking about a project that won't be delivered for another 5 years, then no one is really going to want to pledge to your campaign, because they can't see them getting that thing straight away. So crowdfunding is all about it's consumerism at the end of the day. So your backers are essentially buying into a product, and if you can't tell them when that product will be delivered to them, and if they can't feel that that product is likely to be delivered, then they are less likely to want to back your project. So try and think of ways that you can make it very clear and easy to understand how and when you will deliver your project. So on your Spacehive project page, we have these things called milestones, and that's a place where you can really clearly list all of the steps that you will take, and we recommend including dates such as launch dates in there. So that's the tangibility. And the third thing is spice. So this refers to that unique element of a project that makes it really stand out. So imagine you're reading through your Facebook feed, and all of a sudden you see this project that just jumps up at you. You know, if someone were to read about your project in the paper, would they stop and read on, or would they just brush over it? So this doesn't necessarily mean that your ideas won't work, but it's finding that spice element in your project idea and then extrapolating it and making that the focus, so that that is the draw. That's what gets people to read more about your project. So that's the spice. And just to illustrate these 3 points, I'm going to go through 3 example projects. The first is very simply, the first one is very simply St Albans, Light Up St Albans. Now this was a project to raise some funds for the Christmas lights that year. Now the reason why this was a successful crowdfunding campaign was because it was very tangible. So it wasn't, you know, for a ridiculous amount of money. Everyone who was pledging to the project knew when the Christmas lights would be put up and how they could benefit from them. They knew what they'd look like. And it was also accessible, because not only did it appeal to local families in the area, but it also appealed to local businesses who knew that the Christmas lights would increase footfall to the town centre during those cold winter months when everyone just wants to be at home snuggled up in front of the TV. So although it didn't have such spice, it's kind of a traditional idea, it's not that unique, there's something in it that made it, you know, very crowdfundable, and that it had broad appeal, and it seemed very kind of simple and straightforward, that meant people were very happy to pledge to it. I give you another project idea. This is a project in Liverpool. It's an old flyover that was going to be demolished. That was going to cost millions of pounds, £2 million to demolish it. And instead, a local person raised funds for a feasibility study to turn it into a sort of park in the sky. So they put like market stalls up there, and like grassy areas, and places where you could grow vegetables, places where people could walk, people could cycle. And this project, although it's not that tangible, it seems a little bit out there and unlikely to happen, because it had such wide appeal, and because it had such spice. You know, it was really putting Liverpool on the map, that people really wanted to be a part of this project. So when you're writing your project page, you really want to think, you know, how can I make people feel like they really want to be a part of my project? You know, they really want to associate themselves with this unique idea. And finally, this is the Park and Slide in Bristol. This was only £5,000, and it was a very easy project idea. You know, everyone knew that it wasn't going to take much to put a water slide out, so it's just hay bales under those blue tarpaulin sheets. And this was the first slip and slide public event. It went viral after this, and now you'll see lots of replications of it across across the world, in fact. This was actually televised on the Chinese news, so it obviously had that something different, that spice, as well as a broad appeal, because obviously everyone would love a chance at going down the slide. So that's just to kind of illustrate these three things. Like I said, maybe you've already started your crowdfunding campaign, and that's totally fine, but when you're advertising your project, try and use these things to market your idea. You know, I said before, but this is consumerism, and at the end of the day, you're selling a product. This isn't really charitable giving. It's all about how can the local people buy into a collective improvement for their neighbourhood. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to briefly go through the general Spacehive process before we get onto the nitty-gritty of how to run a crowdfunding campaign. So this is you coming up with an idea, and then this is you sort of you're editing your project page. So once you upload your project idea, it's just a draft. You continue to edit it and refine it and make it look perfect, and then you submit it for verification. Now, verification is a short process. It's normally about 3 to 5 days, depending on the type of the project. But our partners at Locality, which are the nation's biggest network of community-led organisations, they will ask you a few questions like, you know, you've said that you need £1,000 for chairs. Can you provide a quote for this? And you said that you're going to be holding an event in the public park. Well, have you got permission for this, and can you show me permission from the council? So that's the verification process, and that enables you to get these sort of bigger backers. Then you start crowdfunding. You get lots of small bits of money from your friends and family. It's really important to have that momentum from the get-go, and then hopefully you'll get pledged to by some of our bigger funders that you pitched to at the beginning of the process over here. As we went through in the beginning, all those different funds that you could be matched to, they will eventually pledge to your project once about midway in your campaign. And then you do it, you hit your crowdfunding target. So that's the sort of general process. Before we go on to you know, the crowdfunding stuff, would anyone like to ask any questions or any clarification on any of the things we've covered so far? Then do just use the little chat box, and we can just cross those things off before we carry on. And feel free to ask questions throughout. So, you know, you can leave them in the chat box, and then when we get a chance to answer your questions, then we will. Perfect. So I'm just going to show you a brief video, just to give you a feel for how this all works. Brilliant. So that's just to give you a little feel. I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint now. Cool. So the second part, which will be much shorter, the main chunk of this, so we're going to spend 5 minutes talking about how to present your project page. And then we're going to spend the next half hour just running through all those really critical elements to a successful crowdfunding campaign. So presenting your project idea. This is critical. Again, it's where you showcase what your idea is. Now, there's something, there's a bunch of things. The first thing is the title. We've had a project called Project 22 before. That is a perfect example of a project title that's not very good, because what you want to try and do with your title is be explicit. So you see here in this project page, it's called the Peckham Lido. From reading that, you know exactly what it is from the get-go. So if you were, browsing through your social media feed and you saw this, you would know exactly what the project was straight away. And should you be interested in Peckham, or should you be interested in Lidos, then you would click on the link. So you want to try and kind of increase your click-throughs by having an explicit title. So what we've also got here is a very short introductory text. So if your title, your photo and your video and your intro text are enticing enough, then people will go on and read the rest of your project page. But these things need to be perfect in order to kind of create that initial drive of traffic to your project page. So as we mentioned, the explicit title. Secondly, you want to speak to multiple audiences. So as I mentioned earlier about the accessibility of your project idea, if you are trying to get money from local mums and dads and local businesses and grant funders, then you need to speak to all of them. So as you're rereading through your project page, try to see if try to put yourself in the shoes of the potential backers that you'll be asking for money for, and see if that project does appeal to you. The third point is to paint a picture of the future. So some of our project creators will come on and they want to renovate a certain area that looks very tired and run down. Now, they obviously can take a picture of the tired and run down area. So that normally ends up being their front image. So this image here would be, sort of grey and dull. We would recommend putting a picture of the future in there. This really helps backers to imagine, what it is that they're going to get for their money. So this is a project that was redesigning a railway track and turning it into a park. And as you see, they've got these sort of design images of what it's going to look like. Now, obviously, you don't necessarily have to get expensive designs done, but have a search on Google and just upload a few pictures of what you want the project to look like in the end. And also, in the way that you're describing the project, really focus on making the backers excited for what it will look like in the future. Focus on the future, less than focusing on the present. The fourth thing is these clear milestones. So this is about the sort of tangibility. Make it really clear to your audience, how you are actually going to deliver this project. If they get a sense from you that you're very organized and that this is going to be a very seamless process, that they're not going to get sort of tangled up in, then they're more likely to pledge. So make sure that your project page is, very clear. And finally, we recommend using short sentences with a clear call to action. So lots of our project creators write beautiful project pages that are thick in description, but actually at the end of the day, it's best just to write a very clear and concise project page that someone who was skim reading could understand, what your project idea was about. The more detailed it gets, the less likely they are to sort of read on. You have to imagine that they could drop off at any minute, so each sentence needs to be enticing so that they read the next sentence. Cool, so now we're going to talk about planning your project page. Planning your campaign. Now, before we do this, I would like to ask you a quick question. I would like you to imagine that you're you're in a room with all of your backers, all of the potential backers that you see potentially pledging to your project or supporting your project. They don't necessarily have to give money, but they might help in some kind of way. So I've put 4 options up here. We've got the local press, the national press, a local residents association, and your best friend. Now, who of those people, of those 4 people, do you think would be 20% likely to pledge to your crowdfunding campaign? Again, there's no right or wrong answer. You should be able to see the poll on your screen now. There's no right or wrong answer, but it'll be good to get a feel for who you think would be 20% likely to support your campaign, not necessarily pledge, sorry, but to support your campaign. So if you can just use the poll. That's brilliant. Thank you. So just waiting for a few more people to fill in the poll. It doesn't matter. Don't worry too much. Okay, brilliant. So I think the majority of you think that the Residents Association would be 20% likely to pledge, and secondarily the national press. So crowdfunding and running a successful crowdfunding campaign is based entirely on crowd psychology. Now, if you imagine you're in a room with 50 people and one of them runs out the room, you're not going to run after that person. You're going to think, oh, why are they running out of the room? But if then 5 other people run out of the room, you're going to start to think, should I be going with those that group of people? And then if another 10 of those people run out of the room, you're getting really itchy feet now. And now if half of the people in the room have run out the room, are you going to stay sat in your chair, or are you going to go out with them? Now, I have a feeling that lots of you are thinking that you would probably get up and go with them. Now, this is all because we like to do things as part of the crowd, and we think that if enough people are doing something, then it must be right, the right thing to do. So timing your pledges is really key to a successful crowdfunding campaign, because if you ask the wrong person at the wrong time, then you're going to have wasted your time. Oops. I don't know how I did that, sorry. So the first person that is going to pledge is the person that is 100% likely to back your campaign, and that is yourself. You and your closest friends and family are 100% likely to pledge to your campaign, and therefore you should be the first people. Now you have to imagine that you can't necessarily unlock everyone else until you have pledged to your project. And that's because you've got to be those first people running out the room, those that believe in the idea and need to prove to everyone of its worth by pledging £5, £10, £2, £200. It doesn't matter, but it's critical to get those people that are 100% likely to pledge to your campaign in the first hour, if possible. After you've done that, you can then reach out to the next network of supporters. So that would be, your sort of extended friends, your extended family, colleagues, and now you can't miss a single person. So, if only half of your colleagues have pledged, you need to pester away at them. And you can feel like a dripping tap, and this is one thing that Spacehivers always say, that they feel like they're exhausting their friendships almost because they're pestering people so much. But don't worry, people will forget that you've ever pestered them the moment that you hit your target, and they'll feel so proud to have helped you got there. And also it can feel like you're pestering much more than you actually are, because you're pestering so many different people, but the same person might have only had you ask them twice for a pledge. So just keep hammering away. And once you've kind of unlocked all of those people, you can go on to the next ranking of people. So we would say that, the people that are sort of 80% likely to pledge to your project would be a parents association or a residents association, local friends of groups. So basically organizations that have people in them that would be keen on supporting your project page, on supporting your crowdfunding project. So try and reach out to these groups, not only for money, but also to help you promote your campaign itself. So you could perhaps use the local residents associations and ask them if you could put something out in their newsletter. Or perhaps you could get the parents to organise an event for you, to like a cake sale or something at their local schools. And once you've unlocked those backers, you can then move on to the next group. So right now you're already at a point where you perhaps don't know the people that you're asking for money. So you start off with all the people that you know and the people that you sort of know, and by about 70% likely, you're already entering the terrain of people that you don't really know. So this is when you can start sort of promoting more on social media. So here you could approach the local press, small local businesses, Facebook groups. Now there are so many Facebook groups out there that could be hugely helpful in running your campaign. Some of our Spacehivers have sworn by local Facebook groups being key to the success of their campaigns. You've got a network of people that are already interested in one particular thing, and you just basically need to, promote it in there and get a few people on board in the group, and then they should all be able to help, share it on other networks, and they're all friend networks too. So once you've done those sort of online groups and the businesses in the area, the smaller businesses, you can start going to, slightly bigger businesses and community grants potentially. So the reason for starting with the small businesses is because you can then get a quote off the small business as to why they pledged. And then you can use that as kind of encouragement to other businesses to come on board. Now, if you imagine that we just suddenly went from 60% and we jumped to our people that we've listed right at the very end, A-list celebs. So say you wanted to get, you were running a food project and you wanted to get Jamie Oliver to pledge. And you thought, that's incredibly unlikely. He's probably like 1% likely to pledge to my campaign. So if you ask him at the very beginning, or if you ask him, when you haven't fully unlocked everyone else yet, then he's definitely going to say no. But if you do go through this list systematically and end up getting 1,000 local people pledging to your project, and then you ask Jamie Oliver, well, he'll be much more likely to pledge to your campaign if 1,000 other people have pledged to it than if 50 other people have pledged to it. So it's all about timing, and you don't want to waste your time approaching businesses if you haven't got the initial crowd support that businesses need to see in order to agree to pledge to your project page. So then you can move on to sort of the more kind of general online community. So you can search for sort of geographical areas, like you could just search for the Bristol hashtag and see what's in the area and just use that as a way to promote it. And finally, you can go for the real big money. Now this is where you could potentially get some seriously corporate and large pledges in from big grant bodies, corporates, national press might come on and report on your story, and Jamie Oliver might come and pledge to your project. Maybe he'll even turn up to your project launch, you never know. And crazy things like this have happened in the past to Spacehive project creators. If they follow this rule of thumb. A project in South London was crowdfunding, and they didn't have the support from basically anyone. Everyone saw their idea as unrealistic, and they got 800 people in the local community to pledge to the project, at which point the local council, local businesses, everyone else turned around and was like, we were wrong. And they all pledged to the project in the end. So it's all about using your community networks to prove the worth of your project. They don't necessarily have to, the local businesses or your friends and family, they don't have to pledge a lot of money, but it's about putting their name behind something. They're voting with their wallet. So we recommend drawing up a list of all of your potential backers and ranking them from those that are 100% likely to pledge to your campaign and those that are 1% likely to pledge to your campaign. This list will change. It can be, you can just add to it and edit it all the time, but it's a good place to see everything in order and to know who you're going to aim for next, keep you on track. Cool. So now I'm just going to run you through what a general kind of campaign timeline looks like. We recommend that you create a campaign timeline. I'm going to ask a quick question now. I want you to imagine that I'm running a crowdfunding campaign and it's for £10,000. How many weeks do you think I should run my crowdfunding campaign for? There's no right or wrong answer. On Spacehive, you can run your campaign for a day or for a year. So if you could make an estimate using the chat box, how many weeks you think I should run a £10,000 campaign for? Okay, so we've got some answers here. 8 weeks, 20 weeks, 12 weeks, 8 weeks. Fantastic. 3 months, brilliant. Okay, so we've got a great range of answers here. Those who said 8, that's probably what I would go with. But again, it does just depend on the nature of the project, and perhaps you've got other funding rounds happening at that time. Now, the reason why we say 8 weeks is because a number of reasons. The first and foremost, for a campaign to be a success, you have to keep up the momentum and the excitement for a long period of time. And I already talked about sort of exhausting your friends and feeling like a dripping tap. If you can run it for a really short period of time, then it's much more exciting, and people, they know, Spacehive, we're an all or nothing platform, so if you don't hit your target, no one gets charged and you won't get any of the money. But if you can say, we've only got 8 weeks and we need to hit our target, then all of those friends and family that you're asking to pledge will pledge, as opposed to just sort of sitting back and saying, oh, I've got a while, yeah, I don't have to pledge just yet. So it helps to build the momentum, and that excitement is probably one of the most important ingredients. So we always say that, once you reach 10 days before your deadline, you should start a countdown. And on your social media, it should all be about, we've got 7 days left. If you don't help us hit our target, we lose everything. Use that real sort of pressure, the time pressure, to help you hit your target on time. I'll always remember a project called Good Food Catford. They were £3,000 short on their final day of their campaign. And the Spacehive team and the project creator and all of the team involved in the project, we started a huge rally around on social media about the fact that there was only 24 hours left, and then we did 23 hours left, 18 hours left, 12 hours, 5 hours. And would you believe it, within those 24 hours, we managed to get another £3,000 out of the local community. As a general rule, we say anything up to £5,000, you shouldn't spend longer than 4 weeks crowdfunding for. 5,000 to 15,000 is about 8 weeks, and 15,000 and above should be about 12 weeks. But you should try to never go for more than 3 months. Not least because it will tire you out. Use that as a general rule. But if you want, specific advice on your particular project page, then just send us an email and we'll happily advise you on what we think would work best. So I'm just showing you now a campaign timeline, very kind of, it hasn't been fleshed out properly, but this is for a smaller project. So it's for 4 weeks. So in the first week, you want to do what we call the soft launch. So that's on the day that you launch your campaign. You get yourself and your closest friends and team members to pledge to the campaign. Try and get 20 pledges within the first hour. Again, imagine if someone that you don't know so well clicks through your project link and they end up on your project page and there's only like two pledges on there. Then they won't feel so confident to pledge to your project. Whereas if they can see that already 20 people have come on and pledged, then they're more inclined to join the crowd. You're also going to be doing a lot of hand holding in the first week. So, calling up your friends and family and talking them through how to pledge. You really need your closest friends and family to be on board from week 1. And you also are going to start warming up local businesses. So you're not going to ask them for money, but you're going to go in and you're going to say, hey, we're doing this project. We would love to hear your opinion and see if you have any tips or advice. Now, the goal of this is to get them involved, make them feel like they're a part of the project, because then when you go back to them later, in sort of weeks 3 and 4, you'll have a much better chance of getting some money out of them, because they'll already feel a tie to the project, and they'll feel a sense of they'll be flattered that you've come back to them and that you really want their opinion on your project. In the second week, you're going to sort of use those networks, so those mums groups, those residents associations, those friends of park groups. Use them and their mailing lists and all of their networks to get the message out there. And you're also going to go to the local press with some photos and some quotes and a really interesting story, and they will love to put that out in the local paper. And it's also good to put up some posters and flyers. So again, this is to encourage everyone that is kind of closest to you. That you could put a poster up in your office, you could put flyers around your children's schools. This is to also target those that aren't online. Because come week 3, it's all about social media. So you should have enough pledges by now to be able to reach out to those people on social media that you perhaps wouldn't otherwise have been appealing to. I mentioned before, if you, on the day that you launch your campaign, put a link out on Twitter and people click on that, you're sort of shooting yourself in the foot, because no one's going to want to back an empty campaign. So wait until you've got a decent number of backers before you really go heavy on the promoting to people that you don't know at all. It's also a good idea to have a 50% halfway party. So we call these pledge parties. These could be anything from a pillow fight to a cake sale to a movie night. They're ways for you to raise funds offline, but also to reinvigorate all that energy and that excitement, and to show the passion and the people behind the project idea. You can also at this point go to your local council. You've got the local community buy-in. They really want the project it's obvious that the community want the project to happen. Now it's time to get the council on board. Week 4, it's all about pushing for those businesses. You can play the game of help be the hero. We still need £5,000. What can you offer us? And then you can be the ones that finish our campaign, that make this all happen. You also want to sort of try your luck. So go to those celebrities and those people that you really didn't think were possible before, and give it a go, because hopefully by now you've got lots of pledges from the community and you are much more likely to get those less likely ones at this stage in your campaign. And as I mentioned before, you want to start that countdown, make sure that everyone knows that if you don't reach your target, all will be lost. Cool, so that's the sort of general way that it should play out. The common mistake is that people think it's all about social media, but actually there's a lot of work to be done before you just put it on your Facebook. In order for it to be effective when you do put it on social media, you need to kind of manually get all your friends and family, the closest friends and family, to pledge before any of that. I hope that makes sense. If anyone's got any questions about the sort of general campaign timeline, do feel free to write in the chat box. This is also sort of better, it's more fully explained in our campaign guide, so do check that out. We can send that around afterwards. So now I'm just going to briefly go through when you do approach a business, what should your message be? So you've got that initial thing where you're warming up businesses, and then when you go back to them, what kind of approach do you take? So we always recommend creating an info pack. So for businesses, they want to pledge to projects that are popular in the community, that will give them, a good image. So you want to start by describing your project very shortly in a couple of sentences, but specifically thinking of why this project would be interesting to that local business. You want to have a screenshot of your project page where they can see, how many backers you've had and who's pledged to your project. It's quite like your project page will become quite a colourful, display of all the support in the community. So have a little screenshot of that to show them. You also want, if possible, if you had a quote from a bigger backer, maybe a fund or a smaller business, then include that in there. It might say the local pub decided to pledge £500 to the project because the families have been coming to the pub for Sunday roasts every year, so we want to give back to the playground, something like that. And that will, really help other businesses to see what value they could add to the project. Include other ways that they can help. So, when you go to these businesses, you don't necessarily just want their money. There's some local estate agents who have been giving the for sale signs to the project creators to help advertise their project page. So it even has their Spacehive URL along the bottom, and it says support the Wanstead Playground Spacehive campaign. So that's another way that they could potentially help. Make sure you list all the different ways that you'll thank the business. So for example, you could, if you were buying a van for your community gardening project, you could put their logo on your van, or perhaps you're going to send out an email to all of your backers announcing that this business has come on board and pledged to your project. Or perhaps you're going to put a special mention in your newsletter or in the leaflet of your theatre production. Whatever it may be, make sure you list all the different ways that you could thank them, and let them choose, sort of how they'd like to be thanked. Make sure that they know about your time limit. They need to know that you've only got 17 days left, and that they need to contact you if they're interested in pledging to your project. And finally, be very direct. So you've already warmed them up. You're going back for money this time. So don't beat about the bush too much. You're going for money. Be very direct. Tell them how much time is left. And hopefully they will come on board. And I'd just like to talk quickly about these pledge parties that we mentioned. So there are some key things for planning a pledge party to make sure it's a success. So the thing with pledge parties is, imagine you make you have a cake sale and you raise lots of cash. You can pay this into your bank account, pay the cash into your bank account, and then you can pledge it to your project page so that it appears as a donation from your certain event. So although crowdfunding is an online thing, we always recommend doing this. So before any pledge party, you need to set the dates and have these dates, set really early on in advance, so that you can tell everyone that pledges to your project that you're going to have an event and that you'd love them to come down. It's good to have a theme. So the theme doesn't have to be related to your project. So one of our projects was to create a mural, a piece of art, and they had a pillow fight, which has nothing to do with the mural, but it basically brought along a new kind of audience, people that weren't interested in the mural per se, but they were interested in the pillow fight. So they came along, they had a fun time, they all had to pay money to participate, there was food and drinks for sale as well, and it meant that they broadened their appeal, and in the end everyone did see the value in the mural, but that hadn't been so, it didn't have so much spice in order to entice them along. So think of different themes that you could use, and get that registration page up and promoted as soon as possible. And what helps to promote it is free stuff. So if you can, when discussing with the local businesses, how they could help, perhaps some of them could donate some stuff in kind. So we've had a local pizza place give a free slice of pizza to everyone who pledged over £30 to one of our projects. So that was a good way to sort of entice people. Someone who's actually thinking about pledging £10, they might be more inclined to pledge £25 if it means they get a free slice of pizza with it. And make sure that you invite local councillors and businesses down. This is an opportunity where you're going to have loads of people in one space that are really passionate about a project. You want to be able to show that sort of critical mass to the local councillors and to the local businesses to make them feel a greater sense of encouragement for the project, that this project is really wanted by the community. During the event, you want to make sure to take lots of photos and videos. This will be crucial, really essential stuff for later on in your campaign, when you're focusing on the social media aspect of the campaign. Photos and videos have a 5 times greater impression rate. So if you post something on Twitter with a photo, it's 5 times more likely to be interactive with than if you don't post a photo. So you should never really not post anything with a photo. So if you can gather lots of collateral at your event, then that will help you and make it much more straightforward. Make sure that you can answer anyone's questions about the project during the event, and provide them with fun facts on the project, and give them flyers to take away with them. All these sorts of fun facts that are impressionable and questions that you can help answer, make it really clear, materials that you can give them will help them to then propagate that information amongst their peers and people in their local communities, in order to spread the message after the event, once the event is over. Have lots of fun activities. You don't want people to be bored. You want them to have a positive memory of the day. And even if that you can't talk about your project the whole time, so it can also just be a nice opportunity for the local community to get together. Have a pledging station. So if possible, set up a laptop where people can come over and they can pledge straight away. And for those that don't want to pledge online, then have a collection bucket. Old school, but it works just fine. And like I say, we can help you put that money onto your Spacehive campaign at the end. After your event, you want to make sure that everyone knows it was a huge success. So post those pictures using your Spacehive update tool. Send emails around to everyone that came, talking about how it was such a huge success. Make sure you pledge the cash that you raise so that everyone can see all that going on. And if you like, plan and advertise a finale project. So when you actually do hit your target, maybe you'd like to have another party to celebrate, and get everyone down to say thank you. So get those dates in the diary as soon as possible. And last but not least, I was just going to run through briefly our social media advice. So promoting your project with the crowd is not done just through social media. There are several ways that you can do it. Firstly is the Spacehive update tool. Now this is a way that you can email anyone that's liked or pledged to your project page. It will also post the email that you send on your project page, so anyone who's kind of coming to it at a later stage can see those updates. So we recommend sending an update at least once a week. Probably no more than that. You don't want to bombard people. You've got your classic social media methods. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram seem to be the most common amongst Spacehivers, but anything works. Like I said, Facebook groups and Twitter hashtags can be really helpful, so use them as much as possible. For those of you that aren't aware, these are a couple of handy online free tools. Buffer is a social media scheduling website. So instead of having to go onto your Twitter and Facebook every day or every 3 hours and sending an exciting post, you could just sit down one Sunday afternoon and fill up a big list of all of the social media that you want to go out that week. Buffer can also tell you when it's a good time to send that post out. So they've run some analytics on their social media sites, and they know when most people are actually on Twitter and Facebook. So using their research, you can set your posts to go out at the optimal times to make sure that people do click through to your project page. And Canva is another really handy and easy to use tool. Again, it's a free website, and it helps you to design graphics, tweetable graphics. So it might let you take a photo and put some text over the top, or maybe you don't even have to upload a photo to it, but it might just give you some nice fonts, and you can have a nice little sort of square image that you could then put out on your Facebook. using these tools, you make your project much more, it looks much more professional, and that's what really helps people to stay engaged. Use newsletters and email groups. Some, they're more old school, but they work just as well. Just keep the message clear and short, and make sure you always include a link to your project page. Posters and flyers, these are crucial. Get them out everywhere. Again, you can design these on Canva, so that is a very handy website. And do get knowledge of your project out to the local and national press. Don't try with the national press straight away, because it's unlikely that you'll just be wasting your time. But start with the local press quite early on, and should your project become quite exciting, then definitely reach out to the national press and ask them to help promote your project page. We've had lots of the big national press help support Spacehive campaigns in the past, so there's no doubt that they can also do that for you. So that's just a sort of brief overview of the different types of channels that you can use to promote your project with the crowd. There's also a guide on social media and what makes a good post, and when to post, and all these sorts of things. Again, that's in our big guide, which you can go, if you go onto the Spacehive blog on our website and search for the guide, then you'll be able to download it there. And if not, we'll send it around in the email after this webinar, which is about to end. So I'd just like to show you one more short video. And whilst you're watching this video, please do have a think of if you've got any questions. I would like to show you someone who, went through this process, had no idea what crowdfunding was, had very little confidence in crowdfunding and herself. And by the end of it, she had run an excellent campaign and had learned so many skills along the way. I'm just going to put my microphone on mute.
Oh wow, it's brilliant. So we're actually at delivery stage. Anonymous, James Parkinson, thank you Sadiq Khan for kickstarting everything. It's amazing, it can be done. Oh goodness gracious. It's called the Fruitful Juice Academy, and I hope to change the lives of 120 young people in the first 12 months, teaching them how to grow, create and sell their own produce. Through the Mayor's Civic Crowdfund campaign, I've become a part of a much bigger network of social entrepreneurs making massive changes in their communities. I think the benefits is working together to create one goal, to get to one goal. And I think the more people understand what it really is, more people should do it. I think it's needed right now. The best advice I could say is get the right support network, so you can discuss your idea and different ways of actually promoting and marketing, because it's very hard for one person to do it, so you really do need a support network, but don't give up. Probably the support network that you've all created within Spacehive, to be honest with you. So I've had a few people from the GLA really, get me back in the box and get me straightened out. I think the skills that I have learnt is definitely marketing, so it might not look like that, it might look a bit chaotic at the moment, but my marketing skills has been, they've been tested. Action planning and actually writing proposals and business plan, and I've really become a better pitcher, so I'm able to pitch an idea and the idea much more fluently. Much more confident, and I probably believe and have much more faith in the own idea, in my own idea. Because I have a, they call it hidden illness, chronic illness with the lymphedema, you question yourself and your ability to do other stuff, and maybe not. And the reason why I'm doing this is because not everyone's made for a 9-to-5 job. This is actually one of the biggest things I've ever actually done. I think now maybe more change makers need to stand up and get more active and grow some food, sell that food, make some money. Yeah, it's good. It's brilliant, it's brilliant. All these little people making juices and smoothies in aprons and their proper uniforms with workbooks. It's going to be really nice. thank you everybody, thank you everybody, thank you everybody. Oh, my cheeks are hurting.
Great. So I hope that gives you a little feel for the whole process. We've come to an end of our crowdfunding webinar, but should you have any questions, then feel free to call us. We've got a phone number that you can find on our website. We've also got a live chat that you can use if any kind of small question pops up and you just want to get an immediate response, then feel free to use our live chat. Other than that, I'm now handing over to you. It's time to either continue with your crowdfunding campaign and to get all of those pledges you need to hit your target, which we know you can get, or it's time to upload your project idea, create your project page, and start crowdfunding. It's invisible until you share it with the crowd, and we're here on standby to help you should any questions arise or should you need any advice. Like I say, we've helped hundreds of projects through this process. We appreciate that it can be new and scary, but it's incredibly rewarding. Not least you don't just raise the money, but you build a new community network. You learn a lot of skills, and it's a very, very rewarding process. So I hope this was clear. It's always quite hard to talk to yourself for an hour, but I hope that you found this fruitful. And like I say, any other questions, please do get in touch. info@spacehive.com is probably the best way. All right, well, thank you very much, everyone. And now you can all go off and have your lunch. And yes, hope to speak with you all soon and read more about your project pages. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.